Hello from somewhere outside or on the outskirts, I guess, of Birmingham, Hoover, Alabama. I, Adam Luckett, am in like a hotel office, I guess. My room ready. So I'm sitting here in the office. I'm doing a rapid reaction because you people need a rapid reaction after what happened over there at the Hoover Met today. Vanderbilt 8, Kentucky 5 final. Joining me on this episode of the Rapid Reaction is Jeff Drummond. We're going to break it all down. But first, Rapid Reaction in this situation is brought to you by our friends over at My Perfect Franchise. Andy's been with My Perfect Franchise for a long time. He's thrilled to be a partner with us with KSR. He's a big baseball fan. If you're interested in starting your own franchise, his services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions. Go to myperfectfranchise.net, or you can call Andy at 404-973-9901. And Jeff, this game went about how we not necessarily thought it would go, but we thought like the first 5 innings, they had kind of had it on cruise control. I thought Jackson Jelkin looked like Jackson Jelkin. And then the at-bats, they got some good at-bats. Tyler Bell came out hot, double home run to get them up 2-0. You got a Oppo home run from Carson Hansen. You got a couple big at-bats from Luke Lawrence. Felt like Kentucky was in really good shape, and you felt like it was teetering on them maybe running away with it. If they could get a couple more zeros from Jelkin and then maybe get a multi-run inning, something they didn't have all game. Like if you could get the big inning, like you felt like really good, and then the bottom fell out on them again, and they blew a multi-run lead in the last 3 innings, in the late innings. It's something we've seen from this team repeatedly this season.
Yeah, I'm starting to think a little bit just about the season as a whole, and it's not over yet. They've still got something to play for, and I think they're going to get that chance. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So I don't want to talk about it quite like it's a postmortem, but it seems like this entire season has been not being able to finish in a lot of ways. They could have won several more series had they been able to finish. They would have scored a lot more runs had they been able to finish in spots, and they could have gotten themselves out of a lot of jams. And we saw all of those kind of flare up today. And the first sign of warning for me was in the top of the 6th when Kentucky had that quick inning in and out, on 8 pitches, I think it was. And that has always been like a big red flag to me covering the SEC since back to the 90s. Is when you see teams get off the field that quickly, it just does something to them. It energizes the opponent. And that, sure enough, the next inning is when Vandy started the comeback. Of course, it began with a couple of outs, so you thought, okay, Jelkin's just going to cruise through this inning, and it'll be a 3-inning game with a 3-run lead. But by that point, the 2-out walk, absolutely a backbreaker. Followed by about 4 consecutive seeing eye hits that I don't think any of them came off the bat more than 80 miles an hour velocity. But, that's the game sometimes. And it just felt like I wrote in a story a death by paper cuts there in the 6th.
Yeah, I kind of want to rewind back. Like it's in the 5th inning. The mound visit happens, right? Because I think he gets out of the 5th.
Where we thought maybe back spasms were kind of flaring up.
Now, after the game, I've asked Jelkin, what was it? And he said it was his ankle, but he was fine other than that. And then I think as that inning happens, Jeff, I think the conversation turns to, well, why didn't you pull him? And my question to you would be, have you watched this Kentucky baseball team? Have you been watching them? Because, I think if you've watched them like a lot, you knew exactly, like you couldn't pull. Like if he's good to go, you just got to ride him. Like to me, I think you got out of the 5th. I think he was right at 72 pitches. And I was like, all right, can he go 7? Can he get you 7? And then you hand it over to the bullpen, and hopefully you can get a couple runs in between then. So you've got like a 4 or 5 run cushion going into that 7th or going into that 8th frame where you need 6 outs to win the game. And they almost got there. To me, Jeff, it was a weird kind of game because until that, I thought Vanderbilt hit 2 really smoked balls all game. It was the double in the 3rd inning by the designated hitter, in the bottom of the lineup. And then it was that home run by Brody Johnson there in the 8th. Everything else, it felt like the ball didn't get 5 feet off the ground. It felt like they were just finding the holes.
And they were all within about an arm's length of a UK defender.
Yeah. So like some of it, it was just like, well, if they're getting these hits, it's just sometimes it's just not your day. Kentucky made mistakes like the Caden Cloud error. It's really unfortunate. You're going to get out of that jam. I think it was tied at that point. It was a tie ball game. You're about to get out of it, and just he gets the ball going to his left, looks to throw to second, then goes to third, doesn't make a good throw, where if he just kind of takes his time, throws to first, it's probably an easy out. So that was frustrating. So that compounds the issue. We've seen that at times, I think, with this baseball team. Some defensive mistakes and miscues compound some of the pitching inefficiencies. But overall, like, the pitching was not great, but like they had their chances, I thought, offensively. Okay. Like you probably knew going in, like, you're probably going to need to score more than 4 runs going into the 9th to win this baseball game. You're probably going to need 7 or 8. And offensively, they just couldn't get it going. And a big thing for me, Jeff, when I look at that box score, Jace Tarnish, Hudson Brown, Ethan Hindle, and I'm missing one more. Oh, yeah, no, those three big sticks in your lineup combined 0 for 12 today.
Those guys had awkward swings too. I don't know if you picked up on it, though. They just didn't look like –
Tarnish didn't look comfortable in the box, I think, until the last at-bat when he got to face the reliever, but then he didn't get to see him again. And where Brown didn't get the ball out of the infield. And Hindle scorched the ball twice, I thought. One was the big deep fly out first inning, and then he had a hot grounder that just ended up being a double play. But yeah, it's just hard. Like when you don't get it from those guys, you need this. It kind of played out like a game where you needed a really good pitching performance, and it felt like you were going to get that from Jelkin, and then it kind of avalanched on them, and it felt like all season these games just kind of avalanche on them in these late innings. How many games have we seen like this where you felt like it's the 6th or later and they have a lead and they've got a really good chance to win? It almost feels like they lose all of these games. I mean, that's not true, but it just feels like it. Things just unravel on them so fast.
Yeah, and it feels like it comes down to just one scenario, one pitch or play that you look back and say, if they could get out of that, if they don't have the 2-out walk in the 6th, I think maybe they win this game. If Jelkin gets that 3rd out in the 6th, doesn't walk the guy, who knows? There's still a lot of baseball to be played, but it seems like this whole season is hinged on a series of those. If they could just make it, and I think Minge made that part of his pitch. It sounded like in a press conference for the postseason that they were very close in a lot of these. I don't think the committee takes very close in games into consideration, but what he's probably trying to say there is that, hey, we've been kind of neck and neck with a lot of good teams and just not been able to get over the hump in some of those.
Yeah, I think, it doesn't necessarily, like, I don't think run differential is part of the process, but like RPI is supposed to account for that. Like if you play team 27 close, it shouldn't, sink your RPI. But overall, I just think in a lot of ways, and I do want to move into kind of the resume and kind of what we heard from Ngione after the game. A lot of ways, this was just a microcosm of the season. And and to me, almost everything played out. Like everything we saw on a weekend, almost, Jeff, we just got to see it in 9 innings today instead of seeing 27.
Yeah.
You saw a really good Jelkin, really for like 5 innings. And you saw, I think, what has been a productive and pretty consistent Kentucky offense here over the back half of SEC play. This team has a little bit of power. They struggle a little bit, I think, putting hits together. And I think that's why we haven't seen as many, I don't think, big innings. It's because it's been kind of a struggle getting hits and walks and getting on base, getting all those strung together. So you saw that, and then you saw just the lack of pitching, I guess, lack of pitching depth showed up. And I think a thing that has hurt this team all year. To me, it feels like it's just like the key stop, the key hit. Feels like those has just escaped them, really all season. Like the one win they got at Florida, it was Luke Lawrence got the big kind of web gem and in the right field, got the stop, got them out of that jam. That's what felt like they needed in this game, and they just could not come up with it. And you look up, and it's like they lost another one like this.
Yeah, you can feel a lot of that. I would also add that it feels like, just from the outside looking in, and it's hard to say sometimes when you're not in the dugout or you're not around your team, but I get the sense sometimes there's just this little slippage in focus with this bunch, that when you really need to nail something down, there's just this slight opening, and this league is just too tightly contested, too many good teams from top to bottom. We even saw it with Missouri today, pulling out the win as a 16 seed. If you give the other team just the smallest opening, it can really open the floodgates and get you beat.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. I also think I just want to shift into – I also think Kentucky's kind of played themselves in this situation. That's what we're going to talk about now. Obviously, the big conversation right now is Kentucky in or not? I know a lot of people have pointed out like what Kendall Rogers has said over at D1 Baseball and some other bracketologists, but then there's other people I think that've got them clearly in. They're really a fascinating case here. And Nick Mingione, and I'm going to write this up later and have it on KSR, what he fully said, and kind of his defense of Kentucky's resume. Like there's the RPI. They entered today 34 in RPI. There's still some games, and this number is going to change all weekend as other results start rolling in. But the live number right now, they're still 36 in RPI. So they're still top 40. And they're still, like, when you're comparing them to the other bubble teams, they have the highest RPI of any other bubble team as of now. Now, that could change, but as of now, they have the highest RPI. Now, what's interesting about Kentucky as a case study is they're 7-8 in quad one. They're going to have more quad one wins than any other RPI team. But it's also the wins over the teams they have. They have a win over number 3 Auburn on the road. They have 3 wins at home over number 6 Alabama. They have a win against number 10 Florida on the road, and then they have a win against number 15 Ole Miss on the road. So they've got not only quality, but they've got quality road wins. Like those might be the 4 best bubble wins of the season when you're looking at bubble teams. So they've got that in their back pocket. They've also got a top 15 non-conference RPI. And you might ask, Adam, why does that matter, non-conference RPI? Because you can control your schedule in SEC. You cannot control your schedule. Or you can't control your schedule in SEC out of backwards. You can control your schedule non-conference. So by the RPI, now some people can argue that it's flawed, and I would agree with you most part, but just that's the system we have, so you got to play by the system. They're right there. Now they're 4-5 in quad 2. That's not great, but that's not going to hurt you. And then now we get into the cons. So they've got 8 quad 3 and quad 4 losses. That's a lot now at the end of the year as we're kind of tallying this up. But I will note that Missouri's probably a win away from moving into quad 3 territory. So, like, that would help. Missouri's 107. Quad 3, the cutoff is 101. So if they were to beat Mississippi State tomorrow, that would get them
be a nice jump
into that next quadrant. But the other one is just the series losses: Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. And now you've lost, you're 1-3 against Vanderbilt this year. And then you've only won 2 SEC series. So I think, like, if you're diving in this resume really under the hood, I think there is some flaws. And then I think obviously the Northern Kentucky cancellation, which I mostly think was like a fake threat, for lack of a better word, from the phrase from the committee, but that's something to keep in mind. So it's really how they kind of split hairs here. But like, they're 36 in RPI, but KPI and the other metric that's name's escaping me, they're both higher than that.
Yeah.
So it would be pretty stunning just from that aspect, because they are I think eye test and people that watch baseball think Kentucky shouldn't be in. They think a team that went 2-8 in SEC series shouldn't be in. but I think there's some key parts in this resume that are played to the system and that the system is really going to value. And that makes them a fascinating case because I think some people think they're not even close to the bubble, and I think some people think they should be out. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the committee does with them here on Selection Monday.
Well, one of the things you throw in there to anyone who says, okay, they're 2-8 in SEC series, and that's true. They are. And that's the bottom line. Oh, Siri's talking to me.
It is nice to be right, Siri.
But they won. They beat everybody they played in conference play.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely.
And especially when you look at when they did and who they beat. And they beat some good teams with their best pitcher at times. Some of the losses are weird, especially in those rubber match games that really proved to be the bugaboo for them. But that would be one potential counter. And another one that I've tried to challenge people to when we get into the discussion. And I'm not saying Kentucky's 100% in. I feel like there's a good chance that they're in, barring some weird stuff happening. But whenever people throw that out there, you've got to give me a replacement if you leave them out. And nobody enters that discussion when you say, okay, I concede Kentucky doesn't look like a regional threat. Who you putting in there in their place? And then it's crickets, and if you come up with someone, then you point to their metrics and they're not anywhere near as good as Kentucky's.
All the teams are on the bubble for a reason. That's what I think people forget sometimes. There's not a bunch of candidates that are just soaring past Kentucky, right? Like, to me, the thing to watch would be do we have any bid sealers this weekend? That's where Kentucky get in trouble. But even then, I think there might be a case where they're maybe not even that close to the bubble. And that's something we're going to find out. We're going to cover it. I'll have an updated RPI up tomorrow. I'm going to wait for the rest of the game results to come in. It's going to be a long wait. Nick Mingione said the team going back tonight, or they'll get dinner, go back tonight. They're going to have practice, or I think he's going to give them the day off tomorrow, and then they're going to have practice on Thursday. So they're operating as if they're going to be in the tournament. I asked him just what do you tell the team when you got a long wait? And he was basically basically his message was, we're getting back to work tomorrow and we're going to get back, and they expect to be in. So we'll see if that's right. And I think it's again, back to the case study, Mingione schedules in this non-conference for this to have a high RPI for them to be safe, where I think Vanderbilt and Tim Corbin didn't really do that. Total different how they scheduled, and it might be what keeps Vanderbilt out, even with 15 SEC wins now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. We'll be here to cover it all. And Jeff, you got anything before we head out of here?
Well, I was just going to add to that fact that Kentucky's been snubbed a couple of times in recent years, and I think they went to a specialist.
RPI doctor.
RPI doctor, expert. This was around either 2018 or 21, somewhere in that gap. My memory's a little fuzzy on exactly, but they needed someone to show them exactly how they can get this down to a science. And it's hard sometimes because you don't know how good some of these teams are going to play, but that's been one thing that Kentucky's been excellent, probably the last 5 or 6 years, finding non-conference opponents who, you should beat. You should win most of them, and Kentucky has, and they end up making you look good in the end because they have good seasons and play well too. So that's another feather in their cap. And I hope the committee, hopefully there's somebody sympathetic there to the little guy, because Kentucky really did challenge themselves in that regard.
Yeah, hopefully
they gave those teams a chance. They played
Sure.
Miami of Ohio, and that's a really good.
Yeah, they're on the bubble. I mean, they're kind of a bubble team right now. Yeah. So hopefully the good RPI doctor had some good medicine for him, and hopefully that pays off. No matter what happens, Jeff, on that selection show, Kentucky, I think is going to be one of the teams they really talk about as kind of being on the bubble, just where that shakes out. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. We'll be covering all of that this week. Monday, we'll be going live again here on the KSR YouTube channel, talking about where Kentucky is, where they're in, they're out, the draw, what happens next. Should be an eventful 4 days. I guess it's 4. I got to count. It's a little, my brain's a little fried here right now, but that'll do it from us here in Hoover. We've got more content coming tonight at KSR. Then we're playing the waiting game, and then on Monday we're going to find out where the Batcats end up and find out if that RPI is enough to get them in. For Jeff Drummond, this is Adam Luckett. We'll see y'all next time.